I have officially endorsed Ted Cruz to become the first Hispanic American president, to become the first-generation American president. Hello, Iowa. I am so happy to be here. So happy to be here. My grandmother and my mother were born in Applington, just down the street. And if it wasn't, oh, I don't know, 400 below zero, I would have stopped by and maybe looked for the house, but no thanks. I'm glad you guys are here. Thank you for coming. This is a historic time in our country. This is going to be read about in history books, and you are going to be read about in history books. What you do 9 days from today could mean the difference between our republic being saved and our republic being lost, and I'm going to explain that. Let me ask you, why are you here tonight? Why are you here? Ted Cruz, I've had enough. Save the country. To save the country. We are here because we all have a simple belief that things can actually be better than they are, that they don't have to be this complex. We all watch television and we're like, it really isn't this hard, guys. We're here because many of us have lost hope. Hope that our children's lives will be better than all of our yesterdays combined. A hope for a brighter tomorrow. America has lost belief in herself in many ways. There are people all around the country and the world that are wondering if we're done. There are many who are praying that we are done. And quite honestly, I think many of us in our worst times say, maybe this is as good as it's ever going to get. Maybe this is it. But I'll take you to the Bible scripture. Where there is no vision, the people perish. And that is what has happened to us. There isn't anyone articulating a vision anymore or anything that anyone recognizes. And so the people are perishing. We're losing hope. We're losing the understanding of who we are, where we've been, and what our future is. And this has happened over and over again. It has happened time and time again. First time that I can find that it happened was before the country was even founded. We signed the Declaration of Independence July 2nd, 1776, and by Christmas Eve that same year, we were done. We had 20,000 troops when we signed the Declaration of Independence. We were down to under 2,000. George Washington had lost every single battle. His men were ready to desert. People were starting to say, George Washington is not the leader we thought he was. We're losing, and they're going to come and kill all of us. And meanwhile, George Washington was sitting on the banks of the Delaware thinking, we got to go the other direction. We have not yet begun. We have to go the other direction. And nobody believed in that. It happened again in the Civil War. We lost every single battle for half the war. The North lost time and time and time again. We had brother fighting against brother. And Lincoln wept. In World War II, we were outgunned. We were outmaneuvered. We were shocked, we were surprised. We didn't have the planes, we didn't have the boats, and the Japanese sunk what we did have. And we were already tired and worn out from 12 years of the Depression. And evil was beginning to crawl over the globe and cover it with darkness. I have thought of this after listening to my grandparents who lived through the Depression here in Iowa talk about the Great Depression and what that was like. and talk about what they saw happening overseas in Germany and with Mussolini in Italy. And I can't imagine how they didn't feel, this is it. This is the end of the world. This is the time that Jesus has to return, because look at the profound evil, and how are we ever going to win? How will we ever defeat it? After that, we were beaten down by the violence and the craziness of the 1960s. And then the corruption of the 70s, with the burning helicopters on the sands of Iran, and the gas lines that were around the block, and the interest rates that were 19%. Time and time again, Americans have thought, we're done. We are not going to make it. There's no way out. But let me give you the good news. This is when America is at its best. When everybody else has given up and we're down on the mat and the rest of the world is saying 7, 8, 9, that's when we get up off the mat and we find ourselves again and we change the world. That's what we do best. We are the nation. We are the nation that gave the world the light bulb, the radio, the automobile, the telephone. We landed on the moon before anybody else. We're still the only nation that went to the moon and to Mars. That's who we are. We're the nation that gave birth to the dreamers, that gave us Apple and IBM and Google and Microsoft and a million other things that just 15 years ago we would have said were miraculous. It came from here. And right now, all across the nation and in this very building, there are children who are having new ideas and saying, you know, I can find a better way. I can change the world. And because they were born here in America, they'll do exactly that. So where does that come from? Where does that come from? That's unique. That's what makes us who we are. And let me tell you, no president can give that to you. No president can give that to any country. Otherwise, people would have been reprinting this in country after country. It doesn't come from a president. And on the flip side of that, no president, no matter how hard this last one tried, can take that away from people. It is bred into us. It's the fire in our bones. We just have to remember that. It's what people yearn for who are across the shores, on the other side of the ocean. They dream of coming here because they feel it. They want it. It's what people who might be in a jail in Iran, or in a slave shop in China, or currently on the auction block with ISIS to be sold as a sex slave. Those are the things, these are things that they can only dream of. This is a magical place. And we've been told it's over. I testify to you today, it is not over. In 9 days, you choose a new beginning for America. Right now, people in America feel hopeless. They feel lost. They're confused. And many of them are angry. Many of us are angry. You never make a good decision when you're angry. Never. It will not end well if we play into the anger. We do stand at a crossroads in our country, the crossroads of fundamental transformation. That's what Barack Obama said he was going to do, fundamentally transform the United States of America. And he has done it. but it's not too late. But I'm telling you right now, I am here because I may not have the chance to vote. My vote may not matter because of the way you vote. If you make a choice and it allows, quite honestly, Donald Trump to steamroll through, it will be over by the time it gets to Texas, and I believe my children's future will be lost. We have to understand the time that we live in, and then ask ourselves, how do we get ourselves back? How do we get on the right track? How do we reconnect with those things that actually made us special, made us a unique and special country? I've never given my endorsement to anybody in 40 years. 40 years of broadcast, I've never given an endorsement, mainly because, you know, for most of my career, it didn't matter, nobody was asking. But the other part of my career, when I sobered up, I didn't give it because I didn't trust him. I didn't trust any of them. I know several of them. I have 0 friends in Washington, D.C., and I wear that as a badge of honor. Those men who have asked me for my endorsement, quite frankly, I haven't trusted. Even though I think they're good men, and sometimes I'll look at them and go, oh, man, you sure talk a good game. It sure says, yeah, probably, maybe, but I don't want to be held responsible for what you do once you get there and start to lose your soul. My credibility is on the line with these guys. And as a guy who lost his credibility through alcoholism, I do not lend my credibility out lightly. So I want to talk to you tonight, not about endorsements. I want to talk to you about American principles. How do we get ourselves back to where we belong? We talked about them when I was on Fox, and we still talk about them on radio and on the Blaze almost every day. All of the principles, all of the values that got us to be an exceptional nation boil down to 3. Faith, hope, charity. Those are the 3. Faith, hope, and charity. So let's go over these quickly as you begin to examine who you might vote for. First, faith. Faith is what brought us here. Faith is what has made us into the country that we are. Everyone else is losing their faith all around the world, and look, they spiral into despotism. Faith is essential. Faith in God, but not a showman's faith. Not the kind of faith that you might get from just reading 2 Corinthians. But actually letting those words change your heart, letting those scriptures permeate you, ruminating on them, arguing with the Lord, trying to figure out what that is, living your faith, and then letting that faith shape every step that you take every day. If somebody wants to understand why I make the decisions I do, all you have to know is my faith. I do things because I believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Jesus Christ is the Savior of the world. And our God has power. There is power in our God. And our scriptures tell us, by their fruits ye shall know them. So let's ask what the fruits are. As you're looking at a candidate, does your candidate have a record of standing up for your right to worship God? Does your candidate have the record of standing up in front of the Supreme Court and saying the 10 Commandments belong in the public square and winning? Does your candidate have the record of going before the Supreme Court in the Heller case and saying the American people have the Second Amendment, they have a right that shall not be infringed, they have a right to protect themselves in any way they deem? Does your candidate go against his own party, go against his own president in George W. Bush, to make sure that a horrific illegal alien that brutally gang raped and murdered women in Houston was not shipped off to the international court, but was left in Texas to stand trial and receive the death penalty which he got and deserved? That is a record of service and standing up for what we believe in. That's deeds, not words. Has your candidate served his entire life to make sure that people understand and hold on to those God-endowed rights that our framers enshrined? The George Washington that we have all been praying for is not going to be found in the garish light of gold. The George Washington that we have been looking for will be found in the quiet yet bold service from a man who stands tirelessly for what he deeply believes, the Constitution of the United States of America. There is one candidate that finds his treasure there and in his God and the service of them both. Where does your candidate find his treasure? Faith also has another aspect that we should look at. I want to be very, very careful. Mr. Trump, I was just told when I got on stage, he's been saying how worthless and washed up and everything I am all day today, but I was glad to hear, this actually makes me very happy. I was told right before I went on stage that he has taken out with his own money Facebook ads to smear me today, so he's spending money on me, and that makes me so happy. But anyway, I want to make sure that we are very, very clear that I am exact in my language. And quite honestly, I thought I heard him say this, and then I thought, no, that's not what he says. And I went and I looked it up and I watched the videotape. I rolled it back. I want to make sure that I heard this one right. Mr. Trump says, and I quote, "I will make America great again." It's not we, it is I. No man can make that true, because it is not true. No one person makes America great. It is each of us as individuals living our own lives, worshiping our own God, charting our own course that makes America great. The president's job is to make sure the government gets out of the way of the people that make the country great. That is ego on display of biblical proportions. That is faith in yourself. That is faith in the human ego. That is faith in arrogance. We already have that. We got that in spades. We've had that for the last 8 years. We've had a president say almost the same thing. Let me translate, "I will make America great again." Let me translate that. You didn't build that. It's the same thing. You didn't build that. It's the tell of a progressive politician. They always have a tell. Most people didn't even know what a progressive, I didn't even know what a progressive was 8 years ago, 9 years ago. But we learned together every single day. If you watched me or listened, we learned what progressives are. And they were started by a Republican. It's why it's never been invited back to CPAC, because the first time I spoke there was the last time I spoke there. I brought my little chalkboard out and I said, "The disease started in this house." The president doesn't create jobs. He helps create the conditions. We create the jobs that change people's lives. And the next president cannot be a repeat of Barack Obama, who thought he could make the seas recede by a wave of his pen, or that he was worthy of the Nobel Peace Prize just because he showed up. We have that. This president must be a servant. He must have less faith in himself, his pen and his phone, and more faith in our God, our principles, and our people. So that's the first principle. The first principle is faith. Please, don't ever say, "Well, my guy can't win." Have more faith in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He will move mountains for a righteous cause. The next principle is hope. Where does hope come from? Hope comes from the truth. It is the gospel, the good news. It's the truth. If you don't have the truth, there cannot be hope. It's why every cancer patient will say exactly the same thing. They'll talk to their doctor and they'll say, "Please, just shoot straight with me. Just tell me the truth. Because if you tell me that I have a cold and I have cancer, I can't fight that. I'll lose. But I can handle it. I'm big enough. Tell me the truth." Truth will create hope. So now let me take you there in a circuitous route. Let me tell you the truth. Our country has a deep and metastasized cancer. It is called political correctness, hopelessness, despair, anger, racism, cronyism, lawlessness at the highest levels, and progressivism. That is our cancer, and it is stage 4. And this may be our last chance at a cure. This republic is on its last leg. What you do in 9 days makes all the difference in the world. We are lying to ourselves. Our politicians are lying to us, and we accept them. And let me just give you an easy one. An easy truth that should be spoken, and everyone should go, "Yes, I understand, that's true." Here it is. Hillary Clinton should be in prison. For the simple reason and truth that if you or I did what she has admitted to, we'd be in prison. We're a nation of laws, but we have become a nation of men. Prison happens for everyone, no matter your title or your last name or position. For the rest of us, oops, my mistake doesn't excuse felonies. But there's more truths that need to be spoken. Our monetary system is a house of cards, and it is a rigged game. Corporate boardrooms all across this country care more about Wall Street than your street. Capitalism, the greatest thing to humankind, it's changed and saved lives. Capitalism has become a cruel joke for anybody without connections or high-priced attorneys or those unwilling to pay to play. Our politicians are now accepting legal bribes in the form of campaign donations or exorbitant speaking fees with the special favors and protections that they get in exchange. And our so-called conservative candidates brag about writing those checks to the politicians. And they say it's just the way business is done. Well, not in the America that we are supposed to be. We must not accept things the way they are. We must not continue to lower the bar. We must not continue to accept lies because they're convenient or easy. We always must do the right thing, the hard thing, the truthful thing, even when it is at our own expense. Because that's how we put ourselves back on the right track. We have to tell each other the truth about the situation with jobs, the situation with the rigged game of cronyism, race, Islam, terror on the streets of Chicago, our failing families, and the truth about ourselves, the hard truth. I'm in a unique position, and most of you know my history. I'm not going to bore you with it, but hello, my name is Glenn, and I'm an alcoholic. Have any alcoholics here? Let's hear it for the alcoholics in the room. There you go. Look at you. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't know what you're talking about. The reason why you know my story, that I lost my family, I lost everything, nobody wanted to work with me, I was a miserable human being. The reason why you know that story is not because someone exposed me. It's because I told you that. Because I thought it was important for you to know who I am and how I came to the decisions and to the place that I am in my life, so you can understand how I make decisions. It's important for us to tell each other the truth, and it really only counts when it is tough. When you think to yourself, they're going to hate me for this. That's when it matters to tell the truth. The reason why I tell you this is because I want you to know I understand pivot points. I understand changing your mind, even changing positions. I understand those things. I believe in redemption. It is my life story. However, the hope of the world comes not from our mistakes, but the ability to admit them, to correct them, and to ask forgiveness. There are really a lot of great candidates in this race that you might be considering. There's a lot of really good men. There's a couple that I could never, there's one that I could never consider. But there's a lot of really good people. But if you want to be truthful about it, why am I here? Because it is a two-person race. Right now, it is a two-person race. If you have somebody else that's down a few tiers, they're not going to have a chance. They won't have a chance if Iowa goes to Trump. That's just the truth. The press and the establishment are ready to make that happen. They will steamroll him into the general, and then they will pick his bones apart and destroy him. I know. I've worked in the newsrooms. That's what's going to happen. And if you want your other candidate to have a chance, you've got to seriously consider who you vote for in 9 days from now. The other guy has said, as we talk about truth, that he says he has never felt that he has done anything in his life that warranted him asking for God's forgiveness. The hubris in that is astonishing. As if the narcissist that we have lived through in the last 8 years means nothing. Today, Mr. Trump came out, and I got this from CNN and from Fox. I had to ask Carl Cameron, is that right? Mr. Trump said today, I could go out on Fifth Avenue and shoot people, and I would not lose a single vote. The arrogance is beyond imagination. Now, I can't judge his soul. I don't want to judge his soul. We're told not to judge his soul. But I will tell you this. We are, as citizens, required to judge his record. And his record is very clear. He is a lifelong progressive. I want to ask you, because turning points are real, pivot points are real, people can change. I changed fundamentally, but what happened in your life? I can tell you what happened in my life. My life fell apart. Rich people, ask any missionary. They go out and they try to convert somebody who's rich and successful. Doesn't happen. Why? Because their life doesn't suck. They're not looking for any other answers. They're like, this is pretty sweet, dude. When your life changes, when you have a real disruption in your life, when you have real pain, that's when you change fundamentally to the core. What was Mr. Trump's pivot point? These were not minor adjustments. These are lifelong held principles and values. Things like, I am a steadfast supporter of abortion, to I am pro-life. Where did that come from? Why should we believe that without a pivot point story? It defies all logic to change as much as he has in 18 months unless he had a pivot point. Now, I can't ask him, and I'm not suggesting that he has to confess or ask forgiveness of God, but I am saying this. That man, for what he has done, should ask America's forgiveness for supporting trillions of dollars in bailouts, for calling for the nationalization of our banks. He should ask for forgiveness for giving money to prop up Anthony Weiner, of all people, Nancy Pelosi, Rahm Emanuel, and while you and I, many of us, were marching in Washington, D.C. in 2010, while we were looking at each other, our country's being ripped apart, and we literally looked at each other and said, brother, my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor, I will go down with you. It doesn't matter if the IRS calls me, I will go down with you. I'm going to the end. I'm going down swinging. When all of that stuff was happening, he does owe us an apology for writing a check to Mitch McConnell and Harry Reid and propping this system up. That's just the truth. I want to know that I have a guy, a candidate, who I may not agree with on everything, but his word is his bond. He says what he means and means what he says. And whether I like it or not, I know he's going to do that. Honestly, on the other side, it's why I have respect for Bernie Sanders. I mean, Bernie Sanders at least comes out and says, I'm a, LSD, FLASHBACK, 60s socialist guy. I'm the guy, I'm the old hippie that's still kicking. I have respect for him because he says, I believe in socialism. I believe we should be less like America and we should be more like Sweden. I disagree with that, but at least I can sit down with that man and have a conversation. You want a real choice in America? You put Bernie Sanders, a socialist, and a constitutionalist like Ted Cruz. Let America decide our course. Finally, charity. Charity is a fundamental principle. It is a bedrock of America. We're the most charitable nation in the history of all humankind. And it seems as though too many people have forgotten that. But people on the other side will charge conservatives and say that we don't have charity in our heart. We're mean. But that's not true at all. We do need a safety net for those people who truly mean it. And we need to keep the promises that we have made to people, like, for instance, our veterans. They did their job. It is now time for us to do our job for them. We tied their hands behind their back while they fought. There should not be any foolish rules of engagement at the hospital. So how do we do that? It's easy. You elect a president who takes the government obstacles out of the way, and you allow the medical professionals and the private institutions to do what they're supposed to do, and they're begging to do. But we also have to do more ourselves. We have to do more ourselves. Tough times are coming. The time for us to walk by a homeless person or an alcoholic or somebody who's out of work or an orphan or a mother who is struggling and out of work. Walking by those who mourn or are afraid without actually seeing them. That has to stop in our own lives. It's why I started the 912 Project so many years ago. Remember, we would never have passed somebody who was crying in the streets. Now we look the other way. But this you already know. This is an Iowa principle. This is a heartland principle. We just have to remind the coastline of that American principle. We must talk less about our rights and more about our personal responsibilities. The Good Samaritan didn't say, hey, let me get the blue pages, let me look up what government agency can I call to pick this guy up on the side of the street. The Good Samaritan picked him up himself, took him in, cared for him, helped him back on his feet. That's what we're supposed to do. You see, the government is not the solution. The government is the problem, and we, the people, are the solution. But that means each and every one of us. Each and every one of us. Charity must not be used as a tool to simply take bread from another man's mouth just because you don't want to work. We must end the misguided compassion. FDR said, when you take away a man's ability to work, you take away his self-worth. Benjamin Franklin, the guy who is one of the most charitable men of all time. He started the first volunteer firehouse. He started the first public hospital. He gave away his potbelly stove. He had a patent on it. He said, take it, because others could find warmth. He didn't need the money that bad. Take it. This man of charity said, sometimes the best way to help people is to compassionately make them uncomfortable in their own poverty. The government dole has got to end, and not just because we can't afford it anymore, but because it violates our principles. By strengthening people, and encouraging them to do what they can and must do for themselves, we build a strong and engaged citizenry that believes in faith and hope of a brighter tomorrow. We have to realize that compassion comes in different packages than what is being sold. And let's not forget that charity begins at home. If we don't get a hold of our borders, if we let this continue to go on, we're the lifeboat of the world. Bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. We're the lifeboat of the world. But unless we get control of our borders, our boat will sink and we won't be able to help anyone. We must know who is here. There are people who wish to do us harm. There are people who wish to bleed us dry, and those people must be sent home. But at the same time, I was with an Irishman this week. I just hired a guy from Ireland. He lives in Dublin. He loves our country so much. He wants to live here so badly. He's not popular in Ireland, as you can imagine. He knows our values. He knows our Constitution. He said, you know, the 28 usurpations in the Declaration of Independence. And I'm like, yeah, of course there's 28, sure. This guy's amazing, amazing. I hired him for Blaze Radio to remind us of what people think about us on the outside of our country, because we have forgotten. So when we look at immigration, let's remember that people, if they want to come here and they want to be Americans, they renew us. And you never know what somebody might do. There was a Marxist who didn't really realize how Marxist he was that moved into the United States. A guy who fought in a revolution for Marxist principles. He was a little nuts, a little crazy at the time, almost lost his life in that struggle. Came over here. He was an atheist, didn't believe in God. Now who wants that guy here? Except that guy happens to be Rafael Cruz, who found God, found our principles, fell in love with our country, and raised the man who could be the next president of the United States. Let's not forget the new immigrants. But most of all, and this is hard for me, I'm speaking this one more to me than perhaps you. We need to be more charitable toward one another. We are at each other's throats right now. Just because we disagree, we're called each other's enemies. We're sellouts. You're traitors. I read somebody who actually came out on a website and called Mark Levin, just for standing up for Ted Cruz, called him, quote, a filthy Jew. That is not who we are. Hatred is growing. We have to find charity toward one another. Left, right, white, black, brown, it doesn't matter. We're all Americans. And if we're all fighting for something that is rooted in deeply embedded American principles, we just disagree on how to get there. Constitutionalism, progressivism, liberty, tyranny. But that doesn't make us enemies. And I think we need to start remembering this. It's what made us great in the first place. We were all Americans united. We've lost that. But we also used to be a nation of laws and not of men. Who is going to lead us back into the place that we need? Who is going to take us? Because last names mean nothing. Whether you splash it on the side of a big plane, or because you're a Kennedy or a Clinton or even a Bush. Last names don't mean anything. Our laws, our principles, our values do. Because that's what America is. It's not banks, high tech, or casinos. What's broken in our country is not the economy, but our faith in God, our faith in each other, our faith in ourselves, our faith in our principles. We're in this together, like it or not. All of us. What you do in 9 days will affect my children and my children's children. Make no mistake, it is that important. We're in this together. And justice must be blind in our nation. It's not right now. Our next president, this is how your children and my children are going to be affected by what you do in 9 days. Our next president may choose up to 4 Supreme Court justices. 4. Right now, what is decided in our country of a win of 5-4, if the wrong president gets in, it could be a loss of 8-1. You'll never turn that around. That's how serious this is. The time for reality show tactics and silliness and ridiculous debate is over. The time is now to be serious. History is going to write about you. History, it may honestly come down to Iowa. History may write that the Americans had a chance. The Americans had prayed for God to raise up a man that had the principles and the fire in his bones, that knew what justice was, that would fight for freedom and principles and the Constitution and restore it. And Iowans had an opportunity, and they didn't take it seriously. As Iowa goes a week from Monday, so goes the nation and freedom of all mankind. I am convinced of it. I told Ted before he was senator, I had him on the air a couple of times, and I talked to the guys on the radio show with me off the air, and I said, what do you think of that guy? And they're like, I don't know. I don't know, he kind of talks like a politician. I'm like, I know, and I can't put my finger on it, but he does. He kind of talks like a politician. I said this to Ted on the air, and I called him into my office afterwards, and I said, you talk a very good game, but let me tell you something. If you go to Washington and you don't do everything you said, I'm going to be your worst frickin' nightmare. I don't have friends in Washington for a reason. And we watched him, and we watched him, and we watched him do exactly what he said he would do. We watched him stand alone. We watched him as the Democrats turned on him, as his own party turned on him, as the media turned on him, as many Republicans in America turned on him. And he stood there against all odds. He stood against the storm, and he said, I will not move. I told you this is where I would stand, and I will not move. There are a lot of really good people that are running. And I don't know who you're really considering. I hope there's people that are not just diehard Ted Cruz fans here. I hope there are people who are still out deciding. And I have to tell you, they're good people. I like Marco Rubio. I strongly disagree on a few of his stances, like the NSA and spying on people. But I really like him as a person. He's a really nice guy. I like Rand Paul and his principles. He is a constitutionalist. He's got it. I don't think he can win at this point. I really like Ben Carson, a good man, a great story, a man of profound faith and honor. He really is. But as we searched ourselves and we debated internally, and I have been praying on this, I just don't believe that he is ready to be the President of the United States because a storm of biblical proportions is coming. And we need somebody who understands it in his gut and his bones exactly what the framework of the Constitution means. Because this president, if it's the next president that comes in, the fundamental transformation will be set in stone, or we will repoint that cornerstone. So who do we go with? Who do we stand with? Do we stand with the bullies who buy and sell favors, who destroy, who smear, who use every Saul Alinsky tactic and lie they can because it's just the way it's done and the ends justify the means? Or will we stand for the little guy who still actually believes in what we all want to believe? That if you just do the right thing, if you just have faith in God, if you play by the rules and you put your nose down and you keep out of trouble and you work hard, that you can actually change the world. It's the David and Goliath story. It's the David and Goliath story. It is the American story, the little guy that believes he can still make it even though all the odds are against him. And yet he's a guy who understands that it's not all about winning. It is about how you play the game. Let me tell you, if you elect Ted Cruz, you're going to get sick of playing the game exactly right every time. Because a country that deals with people with truth and compassion and faith and justice and honor and integrity and decency is a great nation. America will not last another 4 years with division and hatred and backroom deal-making and enemies list. It won't last. Mark my words. People mocked me when I said the caliphate was coming. I knew then, just like I know now, we will not last if we do not elect the right person. And we are better than this. We're better than compromising who we are. The next president of the United States, and I have said every single person who has come into my office, all of them that are running, I have looked them in the eye, and I have said to each one of them, do you realize that you may be the next Lincoln with all that that entails? Most of them respond this way. Yes, I do. They know. They know what we are headed for. It's a storm. But more than that, we are headed for a reset. And when we reset, what are we going to reset as? As a country with a king? If you read the scriptures over and over again, the Lord begs with his people. You don't have to go that way. Don't go that way. I've got the option right here, but they continue to cry out for a king. And so they get a king. This is the election, and you are the people that will make the choice for my children. No king, I beg you. I beg you, no king. The next president cannot be a man filled with vengeance and rage and enemies list. The next president must be a man who understands what Lincoln said, with charity toward all and malice toward none, to bind the wounds of this nation. Ted Cruz knows the oath of office. He knows it is to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. It's not to make sure that there is a chicken in every pot, to make sure that we don't have any more warm weather, to make sure that the rich pay their fair share. It is one thing to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It truly is up to you, my friends. It is truly up to you. I want you to know that it is an honor to be here with you tonight. I didn't just come here just to endorse these principles, but for the first time in 40 years of broadcast, I have found a man that I know I can look into his eyes and his word is his bond. That's why today I have officially endorsed Ted Cruz to become the first Hispanic American president, to become the first generation American president, the first true conservative president since Ronald Reagan. And ladies and gentlemen, the next president of the United States, Ted Cruz.